Welcome back to Learn Astrology with Mary. My name's Mary English. You can find me at www.maryenglish.com, maryenglish.co.uk. Hello, I hope you're well. You can also find me at UK Astrologer. Now, I've had quite an interesting week. I've been interviewed by Anna Isabel on her podcast, and we also did a little YouTube video, of which I'll put the links in the show notes. And in the podcast interview, I'm talking about 12 signs of the zodiac and the book series that I did. So that covers every sign of the zodiac. And on the YouTube video that she made, she's just interviewing me and talking about my chart, which was a bit unusual. Don't often have people tell me about my chart. So this week, because Anna is also a clinical hypnotherapist, and on her YouTube channel there's a fabulous interview's the wrong word, but endorsement that one of her patients has made, and he'd got some high levels of I don't know what it's called now. He's got problems with his prostate, and he had some blood tests done and the numbers were 6, and that's bad, and it means that you're going to have a problem with your prostate. And he was tested twice, and twice it came up as 6, so it wasn't like they'd got the test wrong. So he came to her because he was so worried, and so she worked with him, and so that his own body would heal itself. And you'll hear his testimonial, it's better before. And the numbers come back as 3, and he tells the doctor in the hospital, and the doctor in the hospital, of course, is not even mildly interested, and said, oh, well, obviously the blood tests were wrong. It's like, no, hello. And I say, because Anna is a hypnotherapist, and so am I, she does this similar hypnotherapy to me, obviously works with patients. And what I thought I'd do today is to tell you a little bit about the history of hypnosis and also the key players in it. Now, there are quite a few people involved in I'm covering the history of hypnotism and hypnosis today. But before I even go there, what I need to define for you is what is hypnosis and what is hypnotherapy. The two things are similar but different. So hypnosis is a state that we all go into when we're not paying attention to the things that are around us, and we sort of go within. So when you're zoning out on the sofa watching the telly, you're on the motorway driving a car, and you're down a route you've done millions of times, that's a subtle form of hypnosis. It's sometimes classified as an altered state, and there are different levels of it. So it's that same place you go into just as you're about to fall asleep and just as you're waking up. So you're not totally conscious to the world that's around you. You're more within yourself. Now, there's different levels of hypnosis. So there's, you could be in a state of hypnosis. I use the word deeply, carefully now, so deeply that somebody could be operating you. So there was a very famous doctor who used to operate on people without any anaesthetic, because it was during the war and they didn't have anaesthetics, and he would do treatments with people in a state of hypnosis. And there have been more than one recorded case of people being operated on just with the power of their own unconscious mind in a nice tranquil state. It can be used it's very popular for birthing, for people giving birth, as being in a relaxed state, and it's been used through the years for multitudes of different things. But because the practitioner doesn't give something to the patient or even do anything to the patient, it's been incredibly difficult for the medical community, inverted commas, to even recognise it. It is now medically recognised in America and in the UK with millions of codicils. So I'm going to read to you something that I wrote when I was studying hypnotherapy, and this was in module number 1, and I'm just going to give you a brief history of hypnosis, and then we're going to go through 3 charts of 3 people that were pretty important in its discovery. And so off we go. So Franz Anton Mesmer was born on the 23rd of May 1734. He was a German doctor who studied medicine in Vienna and was the first person to use what he called animal magnetism. Mesmerism was named after him. He was a very successful and accomplished showman, eventually moved to Paris, where he treated numbers of people in groups, sitting round a baquet with metal rods that they could hold to receive the magnetism. He also noted that when patients experienced a crisis, they recovered. Marquis de Puységur was an aristocrat born in France in 1751 and was a pupil of Mesmer's. He used, in inverted commas, animal magnetism on a young peasant suffering from congestion and fever who entered into a state of sleep while still being able to communicate and respond to suggestions. Puységur thought that the will of the person and the operator's actions were important factors in the success or failure of the magnetism. In other words, psychological influences were an important process. Etienne de Courvilliers was born in 1755 in France and was a follower of Mesmer. He coined the terms hypnotique, hypnotisme, and hypnotiste from the Greek word hypnosis, meaning sleep. James Braid was born in 1795 in Scotland and trained as a surgeon. He witnessed a demonstration of mesmerism in a travelling show from Switzerland. He was so impressed he carried out experiments himself. He later realised that hypnosis wasn't sleep and renamed the process monoideism, total concentration on a single thought, but it was too late. The name hypnosis had stuck. Dr. Braid's writings and experiments with hypnotism quickly made him the leading figure in hypnosis. His scientific approach gave hypnosis a new, respectable face compared to the mystery and controversy surrounding mesmerism. John Elliotson was born in 1791 in London, trained in medicine, and was the author of Surgical Operations in the Mesmeric State Without Pain in 1843 and other publications. He used mesmerism in his practice but came into conflict with the medical committee of the hospital where he worked. He continued to practice in his home and founded and edited a magazine, The Zoist, devoted to the subject. In 1849, he founded a mesmeric hospital. James Esdale was born in 1808 in Scotland and was a surgeon who carried out thousands of painless operations in a small hospital in Calcutta. 300 of these operations involved major surgery, with 19 of them being amputations. He also removed scrotal tumours and even diseased eyes without anaesthesia. Hippolyte Bernheim was born on the 17th of April 1840 in Alsace, as a part of France, I think. He became a professor of medicine, or maybe it isn't part of France, it's separate to France, but it's somewhere near France. He became a professor of medicine at the University of Nancy and regarded hypnosis as a special form of sleeping where the subject's attention was focused upon the suggestions made by the hypnotist. He therefore emphasised the psychological nature of the process of hypnosis. Sigmund Freud, he might be the only person of this list you've heard of, was born on May the 6th, 1856 in Moravia, but lived and worked in Vienna for most of his life. He's remembered for being the developer of psychoanalysis. In his early career, he witnessed a case where the doctor used hypnosis and used it himself in his practice for a while. He eventually stopped using the technique and just allowed his patients to use free association to say whatever came into their consciousness. Jean-Martin Charcot was born on the 29th of November 1892 in Paris as head of the neurological clinic at the famous Salpêtrière School in Paris. He used hypnosis to treat hysterics. He concluded that hypnosis was an induced seizure when his hysteric patients showed epileptic-like symptoms when they were in trance. Émile Coué was born on the 26th of February 1857 in Brittany in France. He trained as a chemist and owned his own pharmacy. He noted the strong effects of positive suggestions with his prescriptions. What he used to do is he'd write a little note and attach it to the bottle or the packet or whatever it was given to the person, saying something like, "This will really help you. You will feel so much better after you've taken this." He was just being nice, and he was writing these little notes on their prescriptions. Anyway, after he learned about the Nancy School's ideas of suggestive therapeutics, he studied there and began offering supplemental hypnosis sessions to his pharmaceutical clients. His affirmation, "Every day in every way I'm getting better and better," became his famous catchphrase. Now, I actually have an auditory recording of his voice that's still available. I think it's up on YouTube, because I've looked at his chart quite a bit. I don't think I've covered him on the podcast, but I've been very interested in him, and he was a Pisces. And he's got the most marvellous the people when he spoke there, they were very sort of formal when he's speaking in his French voice, blah, 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 blah. And he did go to America, and he went out there, and eventually, this is Emile Coué, he'd have people come to his, he never charged, he'd have people come to his garden, they'd all sit in the garden, and he'd make a suggestion or whatever, and then the people would like walk in there and hobble, and they'd go out and they'd like dump their walking sticks and stuff and their wheelchairs and leave them all behind. He was very, very good, but he didn't specifically call himself a hypnotherapist. I don't know how he made a living. Maybe he started doing it when he retired. I can't quite remember. Anyway, nearly finished. Milton Erickson was born on the 5th of December 1901 in Nevada, USA. He had polio as a child and used self-hypnosis to help overcome the pain and stiffness caused by the disease. He was a student of Clark Hull, an American psychologist, where he witnessed a demonstration of hypnosis. He eventually became one of the most well-known hypnotherapists of the 20th century. In 1957, he founded the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis. Dave Ellman was born on the 6th of May 1900 in North Dakota, USA. He was introduced to hypnosis when his father was in pain with cancer, and a family friend relieved the pain with hypnosis. He started as a stage hypnotist with a vaudeville act in New York. Much later in life, he wrote the book Hypnotherapy. He pioneered the rapid induction technique. So the Medical Association's recognition of hypnosis, the medical practice of hypnotherapy was approved by the British Medical Association first in 1892, then reinforced in 1955, and followed by the American Medical Association in 1958. In the UK, the BMA, British Medical Association, recognises hypnotherapy has proven its effectiveness mainly in the treatment of pain, insomnia and anxiety. So that's a quick skip. It's always a quick skip with me, isn't it? A quick skip through the history of hypnosis. And obviously, because we have a limited amount of time, I can't do everyone's charts. But what I thought I'd do, because, okay, so here's the connection here now. When we're because this is what happened with the interview with Anna, because she's trained in hypnotherapy. And she was talking about the fact that I've got, which I do have, Neptune in my third house of communication, and she thought that was an interesting signature for someone that has trained and is qualified in hypnotherapy. Okay, so I'm not qualified in anything other than hypnotherapy, apart from homeopathy. And so I've actually been able to do a form of hypnosis since I was a teenager, and I didn't find it difficult. Maybe it's because I like yakking, and maybe if you listen to my voice long enough, I'll put you in a trance. Because when I was at college, so I'd come back from Switzerland, and I'm 18. I've got no UK qualifications whatsoever, and American qualifications, unfortunately, I went to American school, weren't recognised in the UK, so I went to what's called a crammer. So it's like a school that gets you to learn things ASAP, and this was called Davis's in London. And one of the guys in my year, do you know, I don't remember what nationality he was. No, I can't remember. And anyway, he demonstrated for us how to do a past life session. So there I am, 18, with a few of my mates, and this was in between classes. I don't know how we got away with it. and we all lying on the floor, and he talked us through this past life thing. Now, doing past life hypnosis is a recognised thing within hypnotherapy. Okay, so if you Google hypnotherapy and you do past life therapy, you'll find it's offered there, because the person needs to be in a reasonably relaxed state to even visit what might be their past lives. Anyway, unknowingly, this chappie demonstrated how to do it, and I spent a lot of my early life doing it on my friends. So I never did this for a living, but I'd get my mates around and go, let's do a past life session. Anyway, I've got two funny stories. So I did it on a friend of mine, and she was an Aztec, is that right? And she was like, she had to get this, she went to this village, and she had to get this thing, and she had to bring it back. It was the most amazing session. And then so I'm married to my first husband now, who's a Gemini, and don't forget, this is me just doing, I didn't realise it was inverted commas hypnotherapy. I just thought it's this interesting thing, such a Pisces I am, this interesting thing, past lives, find out about it, because I knew how to do it, because this chap, he had done it with us, and I just used still verbatim today the blurb that I learned and the technique that he taught me. There are other techniques to do it, but the one that he taught me, this chap at college, I'm 1978, taught me how to do it. I carried on using it. Anyway, so I'm married to my ex-husband, and I can't remember why, but he's a Gemini, Moon Gemini. We just had this mad idea one day that I'd do a session on him. Now I'm working in retailing at the time. I'm not even doing this for a living. Anyway, so we did this session with him, and he was I can't remember what his job was now. He had a couple of sessions, and they were very modest jobs. So he wasn't a brain surgeon or anything. But in this particular session, because there was a number, because he kept sort of skipping from one to another, I can't remember what the job was now. Anyway, he said, I'm going to go out and buy myself some papers. And I went, oh, right, okay. And I said, well, what sort of papers? Are you going to, what newspaper? Because I couldn't work out what year he was. It seemed to be reasonably recent, sort of within sort of reasonable living memory. And he goes, no, because he developed, because he was a Cockney. He was a really Cockney, he still talks Cockney. Cockney is an English dialect, by the way. Google it, Cockney. But in his session, he was talking like a northerner, and he goes, no, he says, I'm going to get my cigarette papers, because obviously he smoked. Now, he didn't smoke at that point in time. He'd smoked a bit in the past, and his parents smoked a lot. And anyway, as he said that, he suddenly started to cough, and he coughed so much. So I'm having to move away from the microphone. He coughed so much, he totally woke himself up. It was like, and it's like, poof, and he came back round. And that was, I didn't know I had to sort of get him, inverted commas, back into a state of trance or hypnosis, whatever you call it. Oh my God, it was so funny. So when I eventually, and it was a series of, I can't even go into it was a really long story to how I eventually got my qualifications, and it was like being in the right place at the right time with the right person, and somebody that I'd known for ages anyway became my tutor. Blah, 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 blah. But anyway, so Anna said, you've got Neptune in your third house. And I do. I love hypnotherapy. It's an amazing state to be in that state of hypnosis. You lose all sense of time. You wouldn't know how long you've been lying on the floor for if you're doing it with the person. Anyway, we're doing 3 charts today. We do Mesmer, the man that started the ball rolling for hypnosis or hypnotherapy, whatever you want to call it, to even be a inverted commas thing. Now he, and I'm giggling when I'm saying this, he has got such a Gemini chart. Okay, so I won't read everything out to you on Wikipedia, but whiz over to Wikipedia, and his name's Franz Mesmer. And Franz Anton Mesmer, Mesmer. So go and read it, because I don't have time to read the whole blurb. And he's got a sun sign Gemini. Okay, so this is the man that was the originator of what eventually became a form of alternative therapy, not even alternatives in the US. So the college that I trained at, the people that were learning hypnotherapy at the college that I was at, the ones that lived in the US were not allowed to call themselves hypnotherapists, because in the US it's only recognised for people that are also trained in medicine. So you have to do medicine first and then hypnotherapy later, whilst in the UK we're a bit more free associated here. You can practice near enough anything as long as you don't break the law, and I legally am allowed to call myself a hypnotherapist. The techniques you use are exactly the same. Anyway, so and the reason I'm giggling is that he's a sun sign Gemini. Okay, so what's Gemini's all about? So Geminis are like, on a scale of 1 to 10, in the interested in things thing, he's very much that. Now, going back to what I said earlier about Neptune, Neptune is the planet of hypnosis. If you want to understand the planet Neptune, then get yourself into a state of hypnosis, okay? Listen to a HypnoTrack. Ping me over an email. Mary, can I have access to your HypnoTracks on your website, please? Ping me over the email. You're very, very welcome. There's 50 tracks on there. Whoever's listening, please ping me an email and I'll give you the sign-in details to get in there. On the understand you don't share it with your friends, okay? And he's sun sign Gemini, and his Neptune is also in Gemini. Now, they're not conjunct, they're not near each other to influence. But look on his chart, he's got Neptune in Gemini, because he's born in 1734, and don't forget Neptune's got a really long cycle, but he's got Neptune opposition to Uranus. Yeah. Now, if you think of people like President Trump, he's a sun sign Gemini with Uranus conjunct his sun sign. So just think about, how he's been over the years and what he's like, and blah, blah, blah. That's Uranus energy when combined with the sign Gemini. Yeah. Different thing every day when I don't know who I am when I wake up type of thing. Yeah? But Franz Anton Mesmer is a sun sign Gemini, and he's got moon in Aquarius, and moon in Aquarius is sort of a cerebral moon sign to have, is very much into ideas, and Gemini is an ideas thing, and he's got moon conjunct Mars, okay, so he's quite sort of forceful about his feelings, and he's got moon and Mars in the 7th, and now I think his whole life didn't take off until he married some rich aristocrat, as you do. I mean, he was qualified in medicine himself, so it would have cost him a couple of bob to even do that. But the sun sign is Gemini, early degree to Gemini, and Neptune is in the sign of Gemini when he's born. Okay. Now, Neptune wasn't discovered by William Herschel until the year, got to check my notes, 1846, by a guy called Urbain Jean-Joseph Leverrier, who was a Pisces. And remembering, of course, that Neptune is the ruling planet to the sign Pisces, so keep that in mind. Yeah. Now, just to, so we've got his chart, but I just need to tell you something else about the state of hypnosis. We can be very easily hypnotized by advertising and marketing. If you tell somebody something enough times, they'll eventually believe it to be true. Okay. Now, I've had clients that said, "Oh, you can't hypnotize me." Okay, I probably can't, but it doesn't mean to say. And this is what people get the confusion about being hypnotized. Hypnosis isn't something you do to someone. It's a state that you can achieve if you're encouraged to be in that state. Yeah. So yes, there are stage hypnotists, which, as I mentioned in the history of homeopathy, have happened. Homeopathy, hypnotherapy. There are people that can do group hypnosis. If you think of somebody like Hitler, when he was doing his speeches, and he'd be banging the podium and talking, and he's, where everybody's like, yeah. You can be in a state of hypnosis if you're listening to some music. You're just transfixed. You're just there with the person, and that's the state of hypnosis, that you are there while something is happening. Now, while you're listening to me and my voice at the moment, you could be doing the ironing, be on your bicycle, commuting to work, lying down, having something to eat. However, in hypnosis, you can only be in that state of hypnosis if this is being brought about by a practitioner allowing you to be in it. But equally, you can, because we'll talk about the subconscious, there's the conscious mind that goes, hello Mary, how are you? And there's the subconscious mind, Mary is just talking about bollocks today. Okay, so there's this sort of almost two parts of our minds, and it's the subconscious part of the mind that hypnotism works with. Okay, so Mr. Mesmer was a chatty Gemini. Actually, might not have been quite that chatty because he's got Mercury and Taurus, but anyway, he's a Gemini. And eventually, as he got more into this animal magnetism that he had, inverted commas, discovered, he managed to convince loads more people to come and see him. Now, if we go back to the beginning of, why did Franz Anton Mesmer, why did he even get into this to start with? Well, he was interested in astronomy, so it's a bit of a combo here. So there's a doctor of medicine, and he's also interested in astronomy, and he theorised that there was an existence of natural energy transference occurring between all animated and inanimate objects, and this he called animal magnetism, and then later on it was referred to as mesmerism. So he wrote a treatise that was called, what is it? It's now something about the planets. On the influence of the planets on the human body. Okay, so we come up with a theory that the planets influenced our bodies. Yeah, so this is not the same as medical astrology. He reckoned that there was some sort of fluid going from the planets to us here on Earth. So basically, he was sort of away with the fairies, but he seemed to be a nice enough chap and managed to convince lots of people and got funding and whatever. And eventually, because he got so busy in his practice, I thought it was the funniest bit, he got so busy in his practice he couldn't see the people individually anymore. He'd bring them together in groups and make them sit around this thing called a baquette, which is basically filled with water, and there were little threads coming out of it, which I think he'd magnetise or something, and he'd come along with this stick and then he'd touch each person. And yes, he was doing a form of hypnosis in that he was very overly dramatic. Yeah, it was like extremely dramatic. And I don't know if you've ever been involved in doing anything dramatic, that if you're into it, you'll be there. If you're not, you won't. Okay, so now I'm talking bollocks. So in his chart, he's got Neptune opposition to Uranus. So we've got a strong signature in his chart anyway, but he didn't carry it through to where it eventually ended up as a therapeutic, as a therapy for people to use. Yes? Are you with me? Okay. So that's Franz Anton Mesmer. He's got Neptune opposition Uranus in his chart, and his sun sign's Gemini. He wrote this treatise on the planets influencing the human body because of this thing that he called animal magnetism. He felt that there was some entity or energy coming from the planets to us. Fair enough. Okay. Now, in that history, the other chappie whose chart I want to talk to you about, now his full name is Amand-Marie-Jacques de Chastenet, but shortened to the Marquis of Puységur. Okay. Now the reason I'm including him is he was a disciple, is that the right word, of Mesmer, and he was brilliant at it. He came from an aristocratic, oh God, Mary speak English, an aristocratic French family, and he was very good at it. Okay, he was an expert at it, and he didn't do all the overly dramatic and he didn't dress up. Mesmer dressed up. Okay, the Marquis didn't. How'd you get a title Marquis, I wonder? Anyway, I've got his chart as well. Now I've hidden it. Where is he? So he is a sun sign Pisces. Okay, and when he was born, so he's born in 1751, and good old Mesmer is born in 1734, so he's obviously younger. We like disciples to be younger. And he's sun sign Pisces. Now, keeping in mind the thread running through this podcast is Mary's waffling on about all of this because Neptune is in the sign of Pisces at the moment, and I am a sun sign Pisces, and I'm, on a mission. And when he started getting into it, I believe he was in his 20s, okay? Now, when he was born, Neptune was in the sign of Cancer. Okay, now don't forget Mesmer, Neptune's in the sign of Gemini, his own sign. And I've got a first name for him. Amand-Marie-Jacques. How can you be called Marie and be a bloke? But anyway, Chastenet de Marquis de Houdida. He's a sun sign Pisces. I've included his chart with the whole sign method. Let me just save it. I'll just call him Marquis for the sake of argument. He's got a sun sign Pisces. He's got Mercury and Uranus in Aquarius. So Aquarius is in its natural home. And he's got that sort of question in mind. Now, remembering, of course, that Mesmer has his moon in Aquarius. Okay, so why do people even get attracted to each other? There has to be something in their charts that resonates. So if you've got Mercury in Aquarius, which the Marquis did, and Mesmer's got Moon and Mars in Aquarius, you're going to be attracted to them in some way. And also, okay, hear me out, Mesmer had a Cancer ascendant. We know that for a fact because the data for it is on Astro Data Bank, and there is a recording of, because he was born in France, don't forget they write the birth time and birth certificates, which we don't do in the UK. The Marquis's Neptune is 27 degrees retrograde in the sign of Cancer, and Mesmer's ascendant is 24 degrees. So his Neptune is directly conjunct to Franz Anton Mesmer's ascendant. Are you with me? Yeah. So again, there's going to be, if we're looking at planetary attractions here, and anyway, the other thing you have to remember with the Marquis is because his sun sign is Pisces and his Neptune's in Cancer, and his Venus is in the sign of Pisces as well. His Venus, look, makes a really nice aspect to his natal Neptune. So you've got to have something going on if you're going to be, I'm not going to say good hypnotherapist, but if you're even going to be interested in the whole subject, you've got to have something in your chart that's going to be friendly to your natal Neptune, which is in my case because my whole generation are born with Neptune in the sign of Scorpio, and I'm a Pisces, yeah. So Neptune would never have transited through his sun sign, but as he became more successful, because don't forget, when he's born, Neptune's in the sign of Cancer, it transits all the way through the sign of Aquarius, opposition to his Mercury. When it gets into the sign of Virgo, which is now opposition to his sun sign, he was, trust me, pretty successful at what he did. Not that he wasn't successful to start with, what he did. And then by the time he died, I think there was a revolution in France, and he ended up in prison for a couple of years, poor lad. But he was pretty good at magnetism, as it was called then. Animal magnetism, I don't even know where the animal thing comes in. Okay, so we've got the bloke who invented it all, discovered it, but didn't do it as a therapeutic technique per se. Well, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Obviously made a killing at it, made tons of money, got into loads of trouble because he couldn't prove what it was that he did, and everybody thought that he was what's the word now, he was deceiving people. But isn't that part of what Neptune's all about? Yeah, Neptune is, on the plus side, can be therapeutic to somebody and help them contact their higher consciousness and whatever. On the downside to it, and this is, trust me, what's happening politically in the UK at the moment, because the two key players, one's a Saggy with Sun conjunct Neptune, that's Dominic Cummings, and the other is not Boris Johnson, I'm not calling that, but Mr. Johnson, who's a sun sign Gemini, who's just married a flipping Pisces who's under the influence of Neptune. Calm down, Mary. Now, the third chart I want to share with you today, it's only 3 charts because otherwise I'm going to do all of them. Emile Coué is really interesting. We haven't got time for him today. Is Sigmund Freud. Okay, so he's a lot better known. Whenever you learn hypnotherapy, you've got to learn about him. And personally, I think he himself, Sigmund Freud, just got that a little bit too caught up with sex being the issue for the person. I think that was more him. That was a big state of projection there. Anyway, so looking at planetary things, Sigmund has Scorpio Ascendant, Sun conjunct Uranus, and Neptune in the sign of Pisces. So by the time Sigmund Freud is born, okay, Neptune is now in the sign of Pisces, and I will beat myself to death when talking about Neptune being the ruling planet to hypnotherapy. Okay, and since Pisces and Neptune have that affinity, it's a signature of it. Now, he did practice it for a while. As I mentioned, he was witness to somebody putting a patient into a state of hypnosis and then recovering from whatever it was. I mean, I can understand also why it also became a sort of a stage performance thing, because it is really interesting. If you ever see somebody watch somebody go into a state of hypnosis, okay, so you're the viewer of it. We have to do that when we're learning it. It's absolutely fascinating because this person they can be stood up sometimes. Most of the time people are reclining, but a person that's in a state of hypnosis, what comes out of their mouth is like, whoa. It can be good or bad. It can be anything. Because there's no filter now. When you're in a state of hypnosis, you'll just say it as it is. The true deeper part of yourself is revealed. It's an amazing state to be in. Trust me. Ping me over an email. So he's got Scorpio Ascendant. I've got to go deeply what he does. He's got Sun in the 7th. I can't remember how many times he's married. Probably once. Maybe it was a couple of times. I don't know. I'm sure he had some affairs somewhere along the line, if I remember rightly. He's got Moon in Gemini. Okay. Franz, Anton, Mesmer is a sun sign Gemini. So we got the sort of, what I'm pointing out today is the astrological signature going through this. Yeah, so where are the connections between the original idea and to where we are with it now, because Neptune's returned into the sign of Pisces. So we come full circle. So Sigmund Freud started with it and then got a bit bored with it, I expect, and just did the free association thing. Maybe thought it was a bit more therapeutic. And he's got Neptune and Jupiter conjunct. I mean, I don't think his Neptune aspects his sun sign, does it? Oh, it does. It makes a sextile. I lied now. So he probably would have been quite good at it. But maybe, don't know, for whatever reason he gave up. I haven't got a clue. But the sun is conjunct Uranus, so he definitely wanted to do it. I'll do it my way. You know, if you've got sun conjunct Uranus, don't even bother trying to tell the person how to do it. They've got to find it out for themselves. And his Uranus and his Mercury are conjunct as well. But he doesn't continue with hypnosis. Like, the baton is passed. Yeah. And he, say, Moon in Chatty Gemini, and he's got it in the 8th house of sex, birth, death, and reincarnation. There's too much, I think, with Freud that's all about sex. But then maybe back in the day, women, didn't have very good sex lives. Who knows? What's that opposition going on there? So his natal Neptune, is sextile to his natal Uranus, and sextile to his sun sign, but square to his moon. Okay, so he hasn't got a friendly relationship with his moon to Neptune. Okay, which me little chappy, the Marquis, what does his moon do to Neptune? Oh, moon square Neptune. Okay, because they're in cardinal signs. That's interesting. But he carried on with it. And then Mesmer, what does his moon do? Moon square to Mercury. Moon doesn't aspect Neptune at all for him. but it's got the Neptune-Uranus opposition thing. He was probably a lad before his time, Mesmer. Takes a while for therapeutic effects to catch up with people. Anyway, I shall put the links to the interview with Anna Isabel and her podcast. I'm talking about the 12 signs of the zodiac. So thank you very much, Anna, for the interview. We enjoyed it. And the YouTube video as well, where I'm talking about my chart, but you can skip that one if you're not interested in what I've got to say about my life. Probably hear too much of it on the podcast. And if you'd like the passwords to get into the Hypno Tracks on my website, then do ping me over an email. And I must say, because my podcast episodes stay on my website, stay on my podcast for so long, I'm going to have to put a time limit on this, because it's years later sometimes people listen to episodes. So if you want it now, I'm going to put a time limit on it. If you haven't contacted me by the end of July, and that's July 2021, I'm sorry, you've missed the boat. Okay, so you've got until July 2020, end of July 2021, 30 days of September, April, June, and 31, so it'll be the 31st. Double check, I haven't said that. Yeah, so offer only applies until the 31st of July 2021. So I hope you have a fab week. I will be back next week, and I'll see you later. Bye bye now. Anyway, we're doing 3 charts today.